About a month ago, we did as I said, a live video talking about how to build your sales pipeline. And it's a topic and subject that's really close to my heart because in my work with coaching teams, I run a peer group called the 2X group, which is for sales professionals. It's a MasterMind group. We spend a lot of time and almost all of our training on lead generation. It's the #1 issue. We did a survey, we got about 200 or 300 answers back, probably 250 answers back at the end of last year. What's your #1 problem? 60, 70%, it's always lead generation. And so I don't think 1 hour is enough. I don't think today answering questions is enough. I think it's something you have to study, you have to really immerse yourself in, you have to get familiar with how marketers in general generate leads. The fact is that your marketing department's probably not doing a great job in generating leads, so you're having to do it for yourself. So that means now you're not only a seller, you're also a marketer. And if you think about the two different parts of the process, there's the traffic part, which is where, just draw it here. The traffic part is where you are trying to build conversations and leads through social media, through all these different platforms. And then the conversion part is the traditional selling part. And that's where a prospect comes to you and you then take them through the sales process. And in our work, we spend a lot of time on both efforts. It all began with me about 30 years ago where this is all we did. Sales process stuff, tactics, questioning tactics, upfront agreements. I mean, we spent 90% of our time here. The time we spent over here, guess what it was in the 80s and 90s? It was cold calling and faxing and some networking. But it was all very outboundy. There wasn't a lot of inbound because my clients never did direct mail, direct response. I never did that. It's all B2B. But today it's not like that. We don't have fax machines. The phones, it's hard to get people on the phone. So you've got to figure out what are my traffic sources. And we're going to talk about this concept of a Parthenon here in a little bit. By the way, welcome to you YouTubers who just joined us. Sorry about the tech issues we had over there. I'm not sure what the problem was, but we went to plan B pretty quickly, so hopefully you're on and enjoying this. So I look at this as two different methods and kind of two different parts of the house here, the foundation. What is our traffic? How are we building traffic? And then how are we converting? We're not going to be talking about this today. We do a lot of other webinars and things on this. If you're interested in all of this, you can get more information. And if you want to consider engaging with me, it's called the 2X Group, the2xgroup.com. You can find out more about that program. We're going to spend our time today over here. Okay, so this is a big issue. And one of the things that I think is important to know, because a lot of times we get the question, in fact, I got one here. Here's one. My marketing department doesn't take too kindly to me doing my own thing when it comes to lead generation. They want total control. My VP of sales won't go to bat for me. So what do I do? And it's a common thing. It's like, well, I'm just a salesperson. I don't have all the marketing chops. And my recommendation to you is you got to learn them. There's plenty out there that you can learn about how do people make decisions? How do people enter the conversation with a vendor? What are some things you can be doing, which we're going to talk about today? But there's one thing you've got to understand is that when a VP of sales wants to grow a business or a CEO wants to grow the business, they hire you. Let's assuming you're a sales professional. If you're a VP of sales, you know the drill. You get 20 salespeople out there and everybody's working along. And if you want to double your business, you might hire 20 more salespeople. And now you've got 40. So you got more feet on the street. You got more action in the territory. You have more things. That's the salesperson is the VP of sales scalability. That's the scale in their world. But what about in your world? Are you scaling your business? Are you thinking about scale at all? I'm going to write this word here. I know you know what it means, but are you exploring this and asking yourself the question, when I'm out in front of one person, or if I'm picking up the phone, making the phone call to one person, that is not a scalable business. Because if you go down sick, you come up lame, you go down ill, guess what happens? All lead generation stops. It ceases to exist. That is not a scalable initiative. That's not a scalable program. So The VP of sales has you, sales managers have you if you're in sales, but what do you have? How are you going to scale? And that's what we want to talk about today a little bit. To answer this question, I think that every sales professional today has a brand, and that brand exists on LinkedIn. That's really, if you're in B2B sales, chances are you have some kind of a profile on LinkedIn. So my question to you is that built properly? What's the brand? When I go to your LinkedIn page, do I get a feel for what you do, how you do it? I'm not talking about if I'm hiring you to work for, as an employee. I'm talking about as a sales professional. If you link to me and you invite me and I say sure, and I go to your LinkedIn just to check you out, does it feel like you're approachable? Does it feel like you know what you're talking about? Have you written articles? Do you have a stream of posts that are helpful, that are educational, that are resourceful? Or is it all just stuff that where you're pitching things? And so your brand exists right now on LinkedIn. You may not consider that your brand, but it kind of is. Unless you have a blog or a YouTube channel or a website, which you might, and that's fine if you do. I think that's awesome. In fact, I like that because I think you need to get people off the domains of these platforms that you don't control. You don't control LinkedIn. In fact, about 6 months ago, LinkedIn made a change to the banner. So if you had a banner 6 months ago and it stopped working, it's because it was not sized properly. So they can make one change and affect 50 million people. And I know that a banner is a very tactical thing, but if I go and your banner is out of joint, or if it just doesn't speak the kind of thing that you want to speak, your branding is off. So I would suggest if your marketing department doesn't want you to do anything, do it on LinkedIn. You don't have to create products or YouTube videos. You don't have to create major productions because they're not going to like that. But you can get on LinkedIn, post valuable content on LinkedIn. If they still moan about it, find another company to work for. All right, here's another question. It seems like everything you're asking me to do, Bill, has to do with creating something. I'm not creative. So I'm going to go back and review here what we talked about during the first session. And see if I can erase this. Can you zoom in on that a little bit, Travis? And we'll talk about this. We talked about 4 different areas that I think are important for you to adopt and to consider when you're thinking about how do you scale your leads. Number 1 is mindset. We said that you need to have the mindset of abundance and of generosity. You need to be generous. I need to be generous with my knowledge. I have a couple of podcasts. We do things like this. Every time we do something like this, 4 or 5 people call me the next day or email me and say, hey, you know what? I really like that. I want to engage you. How do I do that? I want you to come into my company and work. So this is not a prospecting thing. It's just something that I enjoy doing. But I've got to have the mindset of generosity. And if you play everything close to the vest, if everything you do you want to keep control of and you're not sharing things with people, it's going to be really hard for people to find you. So generosity is one of the mindsets. The other mindset is detachment. Can you see that? Are you okay on this? Detachment. And I talk about this in the book, Same Game, New Rules, and in the New Rules of Selling course online. And that is this idea of you've got to divorce yourself from what other people think. I know you hear a lot of people talking about that, and we all know that deep down. But it's hard. If I say to you, you ought to shoot a video for LinkedIn. You ought to shoot something for your profile video. And you say, you know what, that's a good idea. I've got a pretty cool story. I could do that. I'm pretty good on camera. And then at some point, you start to say, well, what are my peers going to think? Are they going to think I'm kind of all that and kind of up in my head, a little uppity? What are they going to think? And you've got to detach yourself from others' opinions of you. It's really hard to do. But if you're going to become a marketer and put yourself out into the world as someone who has expertise, information, resources, you've got to figure out a way to get past that attachment to what other people think. The other part of detachment is detachment in the deal, which we're not going to talk about today. And the third thing in mindset is abundance. You've got to have the perspective of abundance. You've got to see the potential in the world. I was working with a client at one time, and they had a couple of states that they covered. They were a distributor for products, and they were always talking about new logos and who do we need to go see, and we've targeted these 15 companies. And they wanted to increase their business, I think 50% over the next couple of years, and that's how they decided to do it. And I said, what's your strategy for selling more to your existing clients? Well, first off, John, how many existing clients do you have in this area? He said 3,000. I said, 3,000 clients who are buying from you now? Could they all buy a little bit more? He goes, oh yeah, we've got stuff that we've never even sold to these people. I said, why are you spending so much time trying to sell new logos? It was in the IT business, so they think about things in logos. Why are you trying to sell new people when you could triple your business with your 3,000 clients you already have? And he says, you know what? I hate to say it, but I've never thought about it that way. We're always in pursuit of new. So you've got to see the abundance. Sometimes the abundance is in the new prospects that are out in the field that you're not calling on yet. Sometimes they're right under your nose. There was a book by Russell Cromwell called Acres of Diamonds. And the book was about how we're always looking out 60 miles, 30 miles, 10 miles, when really all the gold is right here in our yard, all the diamonds. I guess it wasn't called Acres of Gold, it was called Acres of Diamonds. All the diamonds are right here on our property. It could be that you've got everything you need to have within your current client base, within your current LinkedIn profiles. Forget trying to get new, just serve the people that already exist. So that's an example of mindset. The second thing was platform. What platform are you going to choose? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? And by platform, I mean social media. Is it email? Maybe it's not social. Maybe it's just email. Maybe you have a really strong email list. Maybe you've just been meticulous over the last couple of years about collecting emails from people who you meet and you come in contact with. So maybe it's this. So you've got to decide, what platform am I going to communicate with my audience on? Think about that. You've got to start thinking about platform. One platform is just your physical platform, is literally a platform where maybe you speak, maybe you just show up at people's office. That's a platform. It's not very scalable, but it is a platform. So think about what that is. The third thing is media, and that's audio, video, or the written word. Think about what form of media are you the best at. And then we'll talk about a little bit more about that. But you got to think about that, because once you have the platform, you can do all these media on all this platform. You've got to figure out what that media is. And the fourth thing is execution. How am I going to organize myself so that I am able to share with my audience the media that I choose on the platform that I choose so that they can get access to me? So that's what we did the first time. The first hour back in May. And so today we're going to, as I said, take some questions, and that's what we're in the middle. But I wanted to do a quick review because I think it's important that we have a little background on why we're doing this. So the question, back to the question, it seems like everything you're asking me to do has to do with creating something. I'm not creative. Have you ever said that? Have you ever said, you know, Bill, I'm just not that creative? So here's my thought. We are all creating our own life. We're all creating our own future. When you look at your future and you say, you know what, I'd like it if I had a little bit more of this and a little bit less of this, and I'd like to double my income, and I'd like to retire at 60, and I'd like to travel 2 weeks a year starting next year. Whatever your goals are, whatever your vision is for your life, it's a creative endeavor for you to imagine something in the future and then create the outcome. So you can't say you're not creative. If you've built a life, if you've built a business, if you've built assets, if you've built a family, you're creative. So we've got to stop thinking about creativity as some kind of magic that happens and only a certain percent of the population is privy to it. I just don't buy that. You have ideas, you have thoughts, you have perspectives, and you have opinions. So you are creative. So the idea here then is to think about how to document what you're doing versus create from scratch. Never set out with a blank piece of paper and say, okay, I'm going to create a masterpiece today. It just doesn't work that way. You have to say to yourself, what did I do today that might be worthy of getting out into the market? Did you have a conversation with a prospect that really was a fascinating conversation and they ask a lot of questions, or maybe they had a lot of objections? That's cool. Maybe they had problems that you came in and you helped identify and solve. Whatever that is, just document that. That becomes your creation. So stop thinking about it something that you start with a blank piece of paper. Just document your experience. I think that's a good way to do it. Here's another one. Bill, I'm inconsistent with my media efforts. So this person says they have the platform, they're using LinkedIn, but they're inconsistent with media. So here's a thought, and kind of it's back to the previous question, is if you're going to be documenting things you do at the end of the day or at the end of the week, sometimes it's not a daily thing. At the end of the week, just think about who are the 5 people that I called on or that I had conversations with this week that had the most impact on me. Maybe somebody bought something. Maybe somebody set an appointment. Maybe you had a really deep conversation with a current client about a problem that they're having where you're attempting to sell more solutions to them. Just think about those each week. What are the 5 most important conversations I had, and document those. And those become part of your cadence. And I say weekly, it doesn't have to be weekly, but you've got to figure out where can I time block this. And Friday afternoon is good, Friday morning is good. I tend to do it Friday afternoon when I look at my next week and also look back and say, okay, what experiences did I have that I can document to help people out in the market? So I would say that you've just got a time block, and then have a notes file open on your phone or on your Android, your iPhone, and just document what happened. And I wouldn't wait till Friday to do that, actually. I would probably do that over the course of the week. I had a training session yesterday with a great client, and we meet twice a month on Zoom, on virtual, and a question came up. And the question that came up was an awesome question, and we spent 30 minutes talking about this question, brainstorming, and it was about the right questions to ask in the sales process. And some people had some great thoughts, I had some thoughts, so we collaborated for 30 minutes. Well, that's going to turn into something for me. It might be a blog post, it might be a LinkedIn video, but it's something because it was so important and there was so many misses on it that I thought it was valuable. So you never know where the content is going to come from. All right, next question. By the way, we talked about this earlier. If you stay until the end, make sure you do a shout out in the comment section. Just let us know, say I'm here, and we'll record that and make sure that you get put into the bucket for the bonus at the end. We're going to give a couple away. Also, I'd love to hear comments too. If you've learned anything so far, if you have a question, and some of the folks here in the room will be able to run questions to me if you do have something. Here's something that I hear a lot, and this person, actually, I'm not going to read the email, but they sent me an email after the last Pipeline Builder video, and they said, here is what I'm sending out to people. What do you think? And I emailed that person back and said, well, it doesn't matter what I think. How is it working? And they said, it's not. And when I looked at the email, and again, I'm not going to read it because I don't want to, it's proprietary, but although I don't know how important it is because it wasn't working, so I don't know how proprietary it was. It was pitch. It was in pitch mode. Everything that this person said in the email had an underlying pitch to it. Pitch meaning they were trying to sell something. We've got some great products and some things new coming out. I'd like to get them in your hands. So if you see, everything was a pitch. Here's my advice. Stay out of pitch mode. You know how I feel about that. If you listen to the Bill Caskey podcast, if you've watched these videos, stay out of pitch mode. Which you say, well, Bill, what do I put in its place? Well, here's the deal. You've got to clearly articulate the kinds of circumstances that you help prospects navigate. You help people solve. What are the problems that you help people solve? And again, I like to think of these as circumstances rather than pains. I know there's a lot of sales trainers who talk about pain. Well, what's the pain? Well, a lot of times people can't tell you what the pain is. So if you ask them what their pain is, they don't know. I've always said, I haven't always said, but in the last few years I use kind of this iceberg idea, and that if this is not a teepee, this is an iceberg, that this is the conscious pain and this is the unconscious pain. Well, if I walk into a prospect's office and I say, well, tell me what your problems are, all they can tell me is what's up here. They can't tell me what the real issues are. And as I said, say all the time, that's where the money is right there. The money is not up here. Anybody can solve this problem. They can Google and get a solution to this problem. They can't Google this because they don't know what it is. And that's where you come in. I said the other day on a podcast, I said, you know, a lot of people talk about the profession of selling going away. It's all going to be artificial intelligence, all going to be AI. It's all going to be online. We're going to have bots that sell. We're not going to need people. And I say, no, it's because of this, because of that. This is where your value comes, is in lowering the waterline, helping the prospect or client see the error of their ways in a nice, elegant, articulate way so that they can start to realize, oh my gosh, these aren't the big problems. It's the ones I don't know about that are the big problems. And you've got to study how to articulate that. Because if you just go in and say, hey, you know, we've got several clients and their biggest problems are these, and you just put those out, people are going to say, yeah, but I don't have that problem. What they're saying is, I'm not conscious of that problem. So you've got to figure out a way, and we talk about this a lot in our 2X group, is figure out a way to articulate that. But the point is that if you're going after these alone, you're missing this. So stop pitching and start talking about what are the circumstances. What are the circumstances your prospect is going through right now in their lives that might be problematic for them and might be an opportunity for you to help them. Be real. Don't be a marketer. I hear a lot of times people say, well, we're just going to do an email blast. We're just going to do video blast. Don't do email blasts. I'm not saying don't email your prospects and clients, but if it has the idea of a blast, it's written by a marketing intern and it's all about pitching and persuading and convincing, nobody has time for that. Who can't wait to get that email? Who can't wait to get into their mailbox and look at the direct mail that just came through where they're pitching awnings and roofing and sidewalks and cleaning? You know, unless you're really interested in that, nobody can't wait for that. But if you weave a really good story in your email and you talk about a client that you helped solve a problem and what the problem was and talk about their experience with you, that may be an email worth reading. So the point is just stop pitching. Don't be a marketer. You need to be a marketer, but you can't sound like a marketer. All right, here's another one. Oh, here's a good one. This is from Paul. Paul said, Bill, I tried to do the LinkedIn profile video. That was one of the things that I recommended, is do a profile video where you tell your story, and then that way, if you have that up on your LinkedIn profile and you get ready to go see somebody or do a call with somebody, you can send them that video and say, hey, I thought you might like to see a 1 minute on who I am and what I do and why I do it. So this is not just for people to happen across your video, and this video is so well produced that they just can't help but wire you money or call you. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to use it strategically in your sales process. So Paul says, it's not coming easily, this video. Am I missing something? So here's the deal. There's 3 elements to a LinkedIn profile video. And I want you to take these down. And I always think that anytime we can frame up something, it becomes easier. Number 1 is the intro. So if you're going to shoot an intro video for your LinkedIn, or shoot a video for your LinkedIn, you need an intro. Here's the intro. Hi, my name is Bill Caskey. In this video, I want to share with you the type of people I work with, why I got in this business, and maybe a way for you to contact me if you're interested. That's the intro. You tell them what you're going to share with them in the video. You got to be very clear, very concise. By the way, these videos, there's always a question of how long should these be? A minute or 2 minutes. If it gets more than 3 or 4 minutes, then it becomes hard to watch because none of us are that good unless we're a video production. We have a production studio that's compelling. And our videos are compelling. If it's just you looking at the camera, 2 or 3 minutes is probably too much. I like 1 to 2 minutes. So that's your intro. Hi, name, let me tell you what I'm going to share in this video, and then you tell them. The second part of the video is what we'll call the body. And this is just like a 3-act play. I mean, just think about it. There's the journey up front, there's the conflict, there's the resolution, and then there's the epilogue. Is that the epilogue? Is that the final epilogue at the end? Prologue and epilogue. Okay, anyway. The body is, what are the 3 problems that you help people solve? What are the 3 circumstances that you help people when they are in them? So let's say you sell dental equipment. I know we have a lot of people who follow us who are in the dental business, either office management, medical device management, operatories, and you sell this to dentists. And so the question is what's the circumstance the dentist might find him or herself in the absence of your product? Might they be squeezed and maybe they can't get enough patients in? Maybe their revenue is declining because they can't get patients in at a higher cost per dollar that they're in the chair. Maybe there's some technologies that they're not taking advantage of that could just blow the roof off their business if they could only get access to these. So what are the circumstances? I shoot for 3. I think you should shoot for 3, and those go here. Here's the kind of people I help. I'm in the dental business, I help dentists, and here's the 3 things they struggle with the most that we can bring value to. A, blah, 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 B, blah, 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 C. And then the last is, is the call to action. What's the call to action? What do you want them to do with this? Do you want them to download something? Do you want them to reach out to you? Maybe you don't want them to do anything, but if there is a gentle and soft call to action, I would put it at the end here. So that's your LinkedIn video, 1 minute, 2 minutes. And so here's the key though. And this from Paul too. He said, I tried it a couple times, it didn't look good. Paul, here's the deal. You've got to record this a lot of times. You don't have to release it a lot of times. You release 1 episode of this or 1 final cut of this, but you're going to have to do this over and over. I had a client the other day who called me and he said, you know what, I found a solution to my video woes and to my messaging woes. And I said, what was it? And he said, I wrote it out, I scripted it out, and I kind of outlined it, and then I recorded it in my phone, and I would listen to it over and over and over, and then I'd re-record it, then I'd listen to it, then I'd re-record it, because I probably did 10 or 12 different takes of it. And at about 10, I started to get in the swing and I got it down. Then I had it transcribed, which I always recommend you have your pitch or your message or any video you're going to shoot that's going to be up there for a while. Have it transcribed. Then look at it. I've got one right here actually from a client who I usually look at these for the clients in my programs. And when I started to read the transcription, it didn't make sense. It was all over the place. But once you have the transcription, you can work it out. And so he worked it out. He went back to the studio, or in his car, and he did the video, and it was great. But it was only because he did the work. He did the framework, he did the outline, he did the 10 audios, he did the transcription, and then he recorded 4 or 5 videos until he finally got it the way he wanted it. But now he's proud of it. So this is the format I would use. There's lots of different formats. You can put personal stuff in here, that's fine, but you've got to start somewhere. This is the base foundation of that. How are we doing on time? Okay, good. Once again, for those people who came over from the other platform from YouTube, I'm sorry about all the tech mistakes, and I apologized earlier, but maybe some of you were just making your way over. So I appreciate you being patient with us, and hopefully the Facebook people, you're welcome here, and I'm glad you're on today. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions? Yeah. Any comments or questions? Why don't you take your headphones off so that... Any comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything that...
Would you like to know okay, so Greg says it's easy to get likes on LinkedIn, but it's hard to get engagement.
Okay, Greg, good question. Easy to get likes, hard to get engagement. And by engagement, I assume you mean comments or shares or things like that. So, good question. So here's the question I would have, Greg, and that is, when you post your content, are you posting it with an eye toward engagement? And by engagement, it could be even a question that you ask inside the video. That's always a good way to start your videos, is just pose a question. I do that sometimes. I don't do it all the time. I probably need to get better at that. But that may be a way to get some engagement. If you are looking for an idea, people love to weigh in. They love to weigh in on things. So you could even say, I've got a prospect who I'm calling on. They've got this problem. Have you ever seen this problem? You don't name the prospect, but what should I tell them? Or how would you go about selling this to them or expanding their way of thinking? I think it's always good to ask for engagement, because sometimes if it's just a 1-minute video where you're teaching something, people don't know that they need to engage. So that'd be one thing that I did. Good question. Good question. So let me know if there's any other questions. Good, thank you. Let's do one of these and then we'll come back. I've tried everything, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I find no traction. To try yet another platform, and I assume they mean Instagram, seems crazy. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. And it's a question you've got to be rigorously honest with yourself when you answer, which is sometimes hard to do. Trust me, I know. And that is, where are your prospects? Where are your clients? Where they are, meaning what platform are they on? It's easy to say, well, my client's not on Facebook, or my prospects they're not on Instagram. No, they're not. Instagram's for young people. They're not on Instagram. You have to be really careful when you make those conclusions, because you're probably making them with the wrong data. So my question would be, where are your prospects? They may be in a couple of places. They may be on LinkedIn for business kind of stuff. They may be on Instagram for more personal and entertainment kind of stuff. Where are they consuming media? If you're not looking, at least exploring YouTube. It could be that you have people that are showing up on YouTube just the pure millions of hours of YouTube viewing is crazy today. So to say, well, my client's not on YouTube, I would never advertise or do anything on YouTube, they're not there. Or they don't go there for the information that I provide, be very careful with that. I've seen lots of people who just assume that their clients are not somewhere, and then 2 years later they realize, my gosh, my clients have been there for 5 years and I wasn't there, so I didn't notice. But I would look at the 5 majors, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and decide, are my clients anywhere there? And I would then focus on those platforms. So when you say I've tried everything, pull back from everything. Don't do everything. It's too painful. Too painful. Find the 2. Find the big 2 in your business and explore it, research it. YouTube has some amazing ad platforms that you can buy into where you can actually advertise and run ads to people who have searched on your product before. So there's all sorts of different ways to do it. So don't try everything. Go back to the basics and say, where are my customers? All right, good question. Okay, let's go with a question from YouTube.
From Rob.
Or Facebook.
Rob wanted to know, should you share the same content across all platforms?
Rob says, should we share the same content across all platforms? Good question. I would say, without knowing what you sell, I assume, did he give us any sense of what his business is?
Rob Lamb is from Phoenix, Arizona. Nope, but I know
Okay.
he's got better weather than us.
Okay, he's in Phoenix, so it's probably sunshine there. And it's, believe it or not, it's actually raining here in the Midwest. So Rob, thanks for your note. We were just in Phoenix. I was in Phoenix back in February. My wife took me there for my surprise birthday, and it snowed. It snowed in Phoenix. Thank you very much.
He's actually a sales coach.
Oh, is he? Okay, cool. So the question is, what was the question? Should I share it across all platforms? I think you've got to make sure that it fits the platform that you're sharing it on. So if it's a 10-minute live video on Facebook, like we're doing, I probably wouldn't just pluck that out and put it on LinkedIn, because people don't watch 10-minute videos on LinkedIn. They used to, but now it's down to 5 to 4 to 2 to 1. So you have to decide, what can I do to adapt the content to the platform that I'm putting it on?
Rob's in insurance.
So that's the idea of this, is just you've got to adapt the content to the platform. But if it's a video and you've done a Facebook Live or you've shot a video on Facebook, you can convert it to a link to an Instagram video very easily. I would just make sure that you think about the context of the platform that you're on. But yeah, in fact, we started doing a lot more Square videos because Square videos can go on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I know that's a very tactical thing, but I don't like to spend lots of time going from Square to landscape to vertical, and Square just works better. But the point is that yes, you can, just be conscious of the context in which you're doing it. My manager wants me to continue to use cold calls and drop-bys. Man, I haven't heard that word for a long time, drop-bys. I assume that's just when you drop by. Well, my question is, how old is your manager? And I talked about this earlier. You are the scale, you're the X factor for your manager in terms of scaling. But you're not your own X factor in terms of scaling. You've got to figure out a way to scale your business. Drop-bys and cold calls, I think that's fine. In fact, we're going to talk about the Parthenon here in a minute. But it's not the ultimate. It's not scalable. You can only be in one location at one time. You can only be talking to one prospect at one time. You've got to have a digital mindset here, not a physical mindset. I think this is a good time to talk about the Parthenon. We need cue a little Greek music, a little Italian music. Where was the Parthenon? Was it Greece? It was Greece, wasn't it? Okay. So here's the concept of the Parthenon. And we're going to this is my version of the Parthenon, so I'm sure it will be funny for some of you. But let's just say there are 5 pillars. 5 pillars in the Parthenon. And the idea here is that we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. And the question is, my manager wants me to do cold calls and drop-by. Well, that would be putting all your eggs in the cold call or the drop-by pillar. And I don't want to do that. So here's the rule that I think you should adopt. Draw a line right down the middle of this. Right down the middle of the Parthenon. Crack it right in half. Crack that limestone right in half. Number 1, this should be your outbound, and this should be your inbound. So what I mean by that is that it's okay if part of your lead generation activities revolve around outbound activities. Cold calling, drop by, networking, even mailing, even direct mail, I would say it's an outbound activity. It can have an inbound effect. But I would and if you want to have 3 here, that's fine. If you want to have a third, Parthenon 2.5. But the idea is that you want to eventually get where this is representing 50% of your inbound, of your leads is coming from inbound. Are coming from inbound. 50% outbound, 50% inbound. So if you're doing content online, if you're doing webinars, if you're doing even public speaking, I think public speaking, you might say, well, that sounds like an outbound activity, but if I'm up in front of 100 people and I make an offer, or I ask them for their business cards and I put them on my email list, that could be ultimately an inbound activity. So when I think of the Parthenon, and typically, cold calling, so we can put cold calls here. Let's just put drop by for person who asked the question. So those are both outbound. But while you're doing that, you've got to have something else working. So it could be that promoting a webinar on LinkedIn. You're not going to be able to see this, but promoting a webinar on LinkedIn might be one. Oh, we're going to pull this in? Pull this, okay. Yeah, I know the, more? Okay, good. Promoting a webinar on LinkedIn. It could be that maybe you do public speaking. Maybe you do Facebook Lives. Maybe you do YouTube Lives, if you have better luck than we did. You do something where you're answering questions. Maybe it's a weekly TV show that you do on Instagram. I have a client who does a weekly Q&A on Instagram, and they just basically take the questions that they got from the field in their particular industry, on a Friday, and they do a quick Instagram show. And it's really just kind of like we're doing. They're just taking and answering questions. And they repost it on LinkedIn then. They adopt it a little bit. But that could be something. So what are you doing to put content out there in the world so that an inbound lead comes in? Make sure that your strategy is 50-50 ultimately. Now, ultimately, on the big picture, you probably want it to be 80% over here, because that's when your business is really scalable. Still not so scalable over here, but I understand that you have pressure from managers and leaders and people like that, and you just know that you can control a little bit more of this, and I get that. That's cool. So that's what I would do. Manager wants me to continue his cold calls. I would explain to him or her the Parthenon effect. How are we doing on time? 8 minutes, okay. Well, let's take a question from our audience, our Facebook audience. So who has that?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mark Zachary was asking, what is a good email platform? MailChimp, and also what about video communications and BombBomb, which I've not heard of.
Okay, Mark, good questions all. I know Mark. He's a brand new client of ours, actually, so I'm glad you're on. Video platform, email platform, and BonBon. BonBon, for those of you that don't know it, is an email video platform where you can actually send emails to people. It's fairly new. It's been out for a couple of years. Co-video is one. BonBon is one. There's several. And the notion there is that you can create a customized video for your prospect. So when you send the email, they will see your screenshot or your thumbnail, and they'll click on that. It will take them then to a site. You're not sending the video file, and don't ever send a video file. It's just too big. But you're taking them to a site then, and they can watch the video. And on the video, you'd say, hey, Travis, Bill Caskey here. Just wanted to let you know we're going to be in town. I'd like to see you come into our session, blah, 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 whatever. So I like that. I think that's one creative way to get past the whole email. I'm getting 1,000 of them, and as I'm looking through them, if I see a video that says, hey, Bill, I shot this for you, that might cause me to watch that. So just make sure that when you're video recording it, you're not pitching. Kind of gets back to that don't pitch. As far as email platforms, there's tons of them. We don't recommend any. We're not on the, we're not affiliates or anybody. I think, what would you say, Travis? MailChimp is probably one of the more reasonable ones. We use Aweber. Aweber's okay. I think there's some more modern ones than Aweber, but MailChimp is good. But I do think it's important you have one, and you might say, well, but my marketing department has that. Yeah, but your marketing department is not you. And as you come across people in the field, let's say you've got a territory of a couple of states. I talked to a guy the other day, has North and South Carolina. I said, have you been collecting email addresses? He says, no. Because I have email addresses, but I have them in my Outlook. And I said, well, you need to consider moving those over to a platform, is it called an ASP or ISP? Email service provider, ESP. I'm pretty impressed I thought of that. And you need to figure out, can I get one of those for 20 bucks? You can get them for 15, 20 bucks a month. Now that you can't put 40,000 people in them, but you don't have 40,000 people, but you might have 1,000. And that way, when you want to email your group, you can slice it and dice it in several ways. So for 20, 30 bucks a month, you've got to start thinking like a marketer. And if you want to generate, if you're $100,000 a year and you want to get to 200,000 and you like some of these ideas and you want to do this, 20, 30 bucks a month doesn't set you back that far. Now, there may be some other things too. There may be some other products, but you've $80, $100, a couple $100 a month is nothing. So you've got to get out of this, well, that's not my job, that's marketing's job. No, it's your job. If you want to scale your business, you want to do this, then you're going to have to invest. And some of these platforms are very helpful. Okay.
And a follow-up to his was, how often should you be posting? And what I replied was, frequency can be dependent on the audience. However, key is consistency, making the same day time of your communication.
Yeah. Mark also asked, what's the consistency? How often should I be emailing and or social media posting. I think his question is about posting, but while we're talking about email, you know, I think if you send an email once a week, as long as it's full of value, it's got valuable things in it, I think that's good. I don't think once every 6 months you email your customers is enough. I mean, they don't get in a cadence. Like, well, I can't remember you from 6 months ago. So email weekly, social media posting, it's up to you. We're finding that there's a lot more benefit when you post more frequently. I'll just leave it at that. Whether it's daily, whether it's 2 or 3 times a day, but it's got to be consistent. And Mark, I would suggest you probably need to ratchet it up. I was talking with a CEO the other day, and he says, "Yeah, we post once a month on LinkedIn." And I was thinking, once a month is a 60th of what you need to do. You need to be posting every day. Oh, every day? We can't post every day. Yeah, you can. If you think about it the way we want you to think about it, you can. Okay, timing?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. If you're watching this and you have not commented or just said, hey, we're going to put all the people who have watched into a bucket, and you're going to get a complimentary 30-minute coaching session with me where we can talk about any of this you want. And at the end of that coaching session, I'll even audio record it so you can have it. We'll be throwing out ideas. It'll be an idea machine during that 30 minutes. And you'll get access to that. I'm not going to transcribe it for you or have it transcribed, but you'll get the audio of that. So make sure you let us know. Just let us know you're here. We're putting it all in the box right now. You got about 10 seconds to let us know you're here. And then the box closes. We'll be drawing 2 names out. Let's talk one more. One more question here. Bill, I'm not sure I'm saying the right thing, either in my content, my emails, or when I speak. I get appointments lined up, but they go nowhere. This is a lot about messaging. And if you think about messaging, and we might go a little bit longer here. So you think about the problems that people have. Can you see this, Travis? The problems that people have. Your message should be built around the problems that your prospects have. There are 2 types of problems. There are the external problems, like my company, we're not closing enough sales. This is what I hear a lot. Our closing percentage is 10 to 15%. We spend lots of time and burn lots of calories in the field, and 85% of the deals go unclosed. Well, that's a big problem. It's a big problem. But if you don't solve that problem, let's say you've got problem X, PX90, you've got problem X, my question always is, what's the internal impact if you don't get that problem solved? What happens internally to you, Mr. or Miss VP of Sales or CEO or President? What happens to you if that problem goes unsolved? Is it shame? Is it a feeling of loss of potential revenue? Am I going to have to let salespeople go because they're not making the grade, and that's going to feel really off to me because I don't want to let anybody go, and especially when I feel like I'm not helping them enough? What's the internal pain that comes from the external pain? So if you think about this that way, the problem, the external pain, the internal pain, and you start to focus on these things in your messaging and in your positioning and in your social media posting. I had a client the other day who we went through this, and he's going to do this with his team, and he's going to come up with 5 to 7 on each of these. And I said, Mike, if you do that, you're going to have 6 months worth of content. Because when you're talking about these internal issues, people will either be attracted to them because they'll say, yep, that's me. You know, I am a little bit nervous about my job. Or the external issues, oh man, we're losing so much money because of that. But you'll be able to message that. So I would recommend you message properly. And if you're not talking about these things, your message is not right. Your message sounds like everybody else about our product and the features and the benefits. Boy, that's garbage. Get into the real stuff here. Okay, 2 winners.
Pick 2 numbers between 1 and 17.
One is, let's do 3 and 11.
3 and 11. So you have James Kerr
James K.
and Jordan Cohen.
J-O.
Jordancoh.
Okay, we'll keep them anonymous here. We'll do James K, Jordan C. You both, what do they need to do? They need to email me. Is that true? Is that the best way to do it?
They can message you through Facebook.
Message me through Facebook. Just say, I won, hooray, hip hip hooray, I'm on fire today, whatever you want to say. Yeah.
I want you to do a shout out to Taylor Studebaker for
Oh,
watching today.
shout out to Taylor S. I like to keep people anonymous here.
Yeah,
I know.
see that.
Taylor Studebaker, welcome. I knew Taylor before she was famous. So I hope you've gotten value today. If you're interested in any kind of engagement with me or with the company or any kind of groups that we do, you can go to the2xgroup.com. That's a peer and mastermind group for sales professionals. We're always taking applications for that. We just filled up another group and we've got some really good clients coming in. I know some of them are on today. And it's a group for salespeople. It meets a couple times a month. Go to the2xgroup.com or you can go to billcaskey.com and find out a lot more about some of the other programs that we offer. There's some freebies there that you can get. And I will be talking to James and Jordan. I will make one call to you, and if I don't hear from you back, then we're going to have to give it away. So I will either email you or call you once to set up the meeting. And if we have to give it to somebody else, we've got a list of people. So once again, sorry about the problem on YouTube. Glad Facebook was here. Thanks personally to Mark Zuckerberg for helping us out today. We had a great time. Hopefully you learned something. If you want to put in the comments section what you learned, we'd love to hear it. See you next time. Bye.